Today I will be talking about how to clean up stale transactions in the bank register for attached accounts within your QuickBooks. So to start out with, what is a stale transaction? On QuickBooks here, we are in the bank transaction feed section. We can see for the checking account and the savings account that I have, they're pretty much coded except for a couple transactions that are really new. So the next thing I'm going to go do is go to the bank register, and up here in the top right corner, it would say reconciled on and give a date. Since this is a sample company, it actually doesn't allow you to reconcile, so we are just going to pretend this account is reconciled through end of July 2024. So scrolling through here, we see these transactions that don't have a green box or a C next to them. And as we scroll down further, we start seeing ones that have a C, which means cleared, and the little green box that means it's been manually added from the bank feed. So it actually came through the bank feed and we coded it as such. So all of these are cleared, and if we actually had reconciled this account through the end of July, starting with this transaction and down, all of these would be reconciled. So you start looking at this and you say, okay, these are all my reconciled accounts. These are all the transactions that should show up in my bank account, and they should match what the bank statement says. But then you scroll up and there's all these other transactions that are hitting this bank account and affecting the balance, as we can see over here, but they're not actual transactions that went through the bank account, so they don't need to be here. And these are what we called stale transactions, and as you can see for this one, there is quite a bit. So there are several reasons why we could have stale transactions. The first reason, and the most common reason why we have stale transactions, whenever you're working your QuickBooks, you would record an expense like this one, and maybe it's as simple as you didn't put the correct payment account. So instead of, you put the checking account, but it really came out of the savings account. So then you could just change the account and save and close. And then that would take that expense out of the stale transactions for the checking account. Another example could be a check. For example, this was created in QuickBooks, and maybe you created a check in QuickBooks, but we actually didn't end up paying it for whatever reason. So this check never got paid. Therefore, it never came out of the bank account. So what we would do in this situation? In this situation, we would edit it. And since we know this check did not come out of the bank account, that it was created in error basically, we can void this check. And if we void it, it says all transactions will go to 0, and that's what we want. So we can void it. It still shows up in the bank register, but it goes to 0. So therefore, it's not affecting the balance. So another common reason for stales is when transfers aren't recorded right. So we have this transfer here, and it's stale. So we're going to click on it and see what's going on. So this transfer says sending funds from the checking account and to the savings account. If this is a stale transaction, the reason for this could be many different reasons. Either we don't have the bank accounts right, and they need to be flip-flopped, or it needs to be in a different bank account entirely, or this transfer should have never been recorded. If we need to change bank accounts, we would just simply change the bank accounts here to correct it, or if we need to delete this transfer entirely, we can delete it by going to more and hitting delete. This transfer was just wrong, so I just deleted it entirely, and it took it out of this bank feed. So now I don't see it anymore, and it's not affecting my balance. So another common reason why we could have stales in the bank register is because whenever a payment was recorded on a invoice, it got recorded directly to the bank account. And what I mean by this, as we can look at it here. So this is a received payment on this invoice, And we have the payment date, the payment method, and then we have the deposit too. And we're depositing it directly to the checking account. This is fine as long as whenever you receive this check for this one payment, you deposit it by itself. If you do that and you match it correctly in the bank feed, it'll match to this payment. However, that's not always the case because a lot of people will receive a whole bunch of checks at once and then go deposit them all at once. So you're left with a group deposit of like 4 or 5 different checks. But if you were to deposit this payment straight to the checking account, it will never match to that deposit amount that comes to the bank account because they're 2 totally separate amounts. So what we do to fix this is we just change the deposit account to undeposited funds. Once we do that, it takes it out of our bank feed, so now it's no longer messing with our balance, and it puts it into undeposited funds, which can be seen here. This will allow us to make a bank deposit now and check off all the payments that we're actually going to make in this one deposit. So this is how you clear stale transactions within the bank feed. Knowing these steps, you would just go one by one through all of these transactions and figure out why they haven't cleared and address them accordingly. If you learned something today, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.